Hello everyone, and welcome to this particular monster art thing that I'm doing. This particular monster is known as the Bewitched. They don't have an exact form of race because they are not natural creatures. They are mainly formed from people known as witches. Sure, it is quite generic to call them witches. However, in my universe where I have written them, witches are insane, well, in the literal sense, mentally unstable magic users. They've been tortured enough to, ignore these atrocities and just turn them into their own tools. And that is what a Bewitched is. It is a monster created from tragedy. It is not intended to be some sort of good force or anything like that. Its main intention, or purpose rather, is to serve its master, the witch. And if you're a lucky adventurer, you could come across a Bewitched contract where it explicitly states who the owner is. And you can of course change the ownership by adding your own signature or adding your own blood print, something like a fingerprint, and it will follow your orders. Of course, that is if you can get past the horrors that it portrays itself to be. They can be created from a massacre, a massive tragedy, a natural disaster, a battlefield. And this one in particular, this Bewitched, is from a battlefield. Here I am during the witch, and of course I wanted to depict her insanity by giving her a little smile, standing right next to a Bewitched. The next thing I also wanted to mention was, of course, my bad anatomy, but that's besides the point. These Bewitched are not also immortal. They will live forever until they are killed. And if there is no owner, they will remain dormant. That's because they do not have any kind of free will to begin with. And as such, they will remain subjects forever. And perhaps it is implied by now, but these Bewitched are an amalgamation of what humans were. Humans that were combined after death and used once again for whatever witches' purposes were. And since they are not natural, they emit a dark energy. And something you could feel a mile away if you were hiding away in a forest or something. And that's the important part, that if you were to see it in the distance, you would know that it is complete trouble. Now, in terms of how I wanted to depict this one particular Bewitched, I wanted to put an amalgamation of different features. At the bottom, you could see a long tongue drooping down from the bottom. At the top, I wanted to put a mouth. No specific expression, just, I suppose, grimacing to a degree. And finally, I wanted to depict the multitude of people that have been turned into this one creature, as you can see by the multiple eyes on his second drooping face. It's also giant. So any kind of larger warrior, let's say, for example, is still small in comparison to this beast. And it is not only an amalgamation of humans, but also animals, as I depicted here with large claws and hooves. It doesn't concern what the witches exactly want to put in this amalgamation, as long as it's a remnant of what it once was. They can feel satisfied, and most certainly have some degree of, I suppose, a sick, twisted humor about their creation. Another one is, of course, the long, large tails of the hand at the end. Another sign that I wanted to depict for them to be a multitude of different creatures. And of course, I need to mention its main abilities. The Bewitched are incredibly fast, they're incredibly agile, they're also extremely strong. One swipe is enough to tear a man in half, even if it's not exactly an exerted force. Relatively, of course. And this creature also possesses no exact intelligence. It doesn't think for itself. As I previously mentioned, it's not exactly sentient. It only obeys its master and whoever holds the contract. It is also not exactly an evil creature once put in the right hands. However, its history will remain the same. As you can see, I am currently drawing swords, spears, things that have been lodged into it previously. And I wanted to indicate that it maybe had a history in the battlefield prior to its creation, to be exact. Or maybe perhaps heroes tried to take out this creature but have failed in the process. As such, I've placed a very ornate sword into its back. And this goes to show that despite the advantage that one hero may have had, it was to no avail. It's practically immortal. I also added arrows to show that it has been indeed through a fight, whether it wanted to or not. And of course, here I am adding the shading, and while the rest of the coloring, well actually rather there's no coloring here involved. The Bewitched here is, well, in the D&D campaign, or Dungeons & Dragons campaign that I was running through, I used to carry the name Fido. It was a name given to by the players. And when they held ownership over the creature, it was quite useful to some degree, until they came across another Bewitched, under the possession of a very powerful witch. And of course, as I would like to end this video, on at least a good note, here I am trying to, of course, put in the very tiny amount of colors that is in the whole creature.